All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome along to Under the Hood. We're so stoked to have you all here today. And we're really looking forward to hearing from two teams of people this month, a team from Jade World and a team from Blutui. So you've got that to look forward coming up really soon. Just before we kick off with the formalities, just wanted to say a quick thank you to everyone who came along to our autumn conversations across the country. We had really good events and it was really cool to come and connect with everybody while we were out and about. So thank you. We're really stoked that you were able to come and join us. Do go and check out online. On the Facebook page, we've put up photo albums from each of those events. So go jump in there. If you see yourself, feel free to tag yourself, share those photos around. We do want to say a big thank you to those who helped us make the event happen as well. So Parrot Dog, Karma Drinks and Finery Cocktails, who provided lovely refreshments for everyone. And also our sponsors here at DA, who are also big part of making these events happen. So Blutui, Portfolio Recruitment, My Chili Bin and Stream Time, they all really contributed to making this happen. So a big thank you to them. So without any further ado, really, we're going to kick off into our first team here. So we've got Scarlett Maddock and Lisa Bruff from Jade World, who are going to share our project with us. So we'll let them kick on into that. Are you both there, Scarlett and Lisa?
I'm here.
Also Hi, Scarlett.
Hi, I'm just quickly sharing my screen. I'll just get that set up and then we can kick off.
Also, just a reminder to everyone, while the team are getting set up, we do have the Q&A box. So do check in there, pop your questions in as we're going along and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. But please do feel free to use that box because it's great to get some conversation going. So with that, over to you, Scarlett and Lisa.
Great, thanks very much. It's great to be here. Thanks for having us. We'll try and keep this to 10 minutes. It's not overly rehearsed, so we'll see how we go. So myself and Lisa are from Jade World, and well, we call it Jade, and we're here to talk about a piece of work that we've recently completed around aged care. So we're going to give the talk from kind of two different perspectives, from mine kind of at the company level, and then Lisa's from within the project team. Before we start, I'll just give a little bit of a brief background about who we are. So Jade is a company based in Christchurch. We have a bit of a global reach. We've got three main areas of business. Jade Digital, which is our end-to-end consultancy service, so that's design, build and maintenance. We've also got Jade Plant, which is our end-to-end platform, and Jade Third Eye, which is our in-house AML product. We're part of the experience design team, and we work across all three areas. The piece of work we're talking about today is from Jade Digital, but sometimes the work that we do spans across multiple of those areas at once. A little bit about myself. So I've been at Jade for 6 months, just over 6 months, and my role is the head of experience design there. And the focus of that role is kind of working within the team, so understanding, helping the team define what team means to us, how we work together as an experience design team on the work that we're doing, and defining our team goals and our individual goals. And then a part of my focus is on making sure that within the work that we actually deliver as an organisation, we get the opportunity to achieve those goals, which can often be quite tricky. I'm sure everyone listening has had experience of trying to achieve their own goals, but it's limited to the work that comes through. The other part of what I do is shaping the direction of experience design at Jade. So what is experience design to Jade? You know, it's a definition that I think differs everywhere I've ever worked, and I don't think two people would ever come up with the same definition. So how that fits within the the way we operate as an organization from a vision perspective, and then through kind of the transformation and operationalizing how we actually get there.
Cool. So I've been at Jade for 7 years. So for the first 4, I was part of Jade's in-house design team. They are responsible for the direction of the company's branding and visual communication. At that point, I then sidestepped within the company to join the experienced design team, and I've been at the team for 3 years. So I am one of the experienced designers in a team of 6. So we have 3 here in Christchurch, 2 in Sydney and 1 in Wellington, and that's Scarlett. That's why we're in different locations. Our typical approach to any project is a collaborative one. So though I took the lead researcher role on this aged care project, where we provided expertise in the research space, I also worked really closely with the 2 researchers from the client side of the project as well.
So the project was already underway when I arrived. So that was the first challenge that I faced in this piece of work, was that I had to get up to speed with the work that was actually taking place, what the brief was, what the outcomes were, who the customer was, and the way we operate within the team as well, and the broader company. So I was really lucky that Lisa was already across the piece of work and doing an amazing job. So I will let her tell the story from here.
Cool. So prior to this piece of work that we're talking about today, there was an earlier piece of work where Jade was engaged to do an exploratory piece on technology that could be introduced to enhance the lives of registered nurses within their role. So at the time, the client had a really narrow vision and they wanted to do something innovative. There was a view of what the pain points were, but it hadn't been validated. So their original thinking was, what technology can we introduce to make registered nurses' lives easier? At which point they then pivoted to thinking how we like to think at Jade, where we think, what does a day in the life look like for them right now? What are their pain points, and how can we remove them through an innovative solution or otherwise? So the conclusion of this piece of work was that voice assistant was a potential opportunity, but that a wider view was needed to understand the actual problems in more detail so that they could know how to best utilize the technology. So a lot of the time, a big part of our role is to help our clients understand the problem that they're trying to solve. And in this case, this is what we had the luxury of doing. So that's where I came in. So the scope of this piece of work was to conduct a series of day in the life studies, which would give a detailed insight into the lives of registered nurses. The first step was for us to run through a preparation workshop. So this was important to make sure that because we were a collaborative team across 2 different companies, we had to make sure that we were aligned on the purpose and the goals of the project. So during the workshop, we identified the questions that we wanted to answer as part of the research and outlined the decisions that we would like to be able to make as a result. The type of questions that we wanted to answer were things like how much time is spent double entering data, and how can existing systems be enhanced to provide the greatest positive impact on a registered nurse's daily activities. We also got a high-level understanding of the current systems, communication channels, and devices used by the carers and registered nurses. This was assumptive, as the people that were giving us the overview, they weren't the actual end users. Lastly, in this preparation workshop, we identified any other assumptions that needed validating. And one of the biggest assumptions that we made was that based on our knowledge, registered nurses had to juggle multiple devices, so iPads, mobile phones, pages. Yes, they still use pages. And that was then making their already complex role more difficult.
So we were just going to briefly touch on talking about outcomes. As well as the project outcomes, there are quite a few other outcomes we had to consider, and similar to all pieces of work in making the work successful. So the customer outcomes are one part of that, but also our business outcomes and our people outcomes. And part of my role is to find the balance of these and to understand individually what those outcomes are and then how they work together. We knew this piece of work that an innovative solution would be great, but it actually wouldn't solve their problems. And so as partners, as good business partners, it was part of our job to make them see that. And we were really lucky that it was a great organization to work with who were comfortable with that pivot that Lisa mentioned. One of the big challenges on this piece of work really was doing a great piece of work for the customer, but not great for our business and our budget. For me, being new to the organization, it was really kind of quick fire learning into how we budget a piece of work and how we watch that budget be spent. And the other part of it was that it was a great piece of work for our business, but we didn't want to, there was a lot of focus on a lot of work to do for our people, and trying to balance that, not burning out our people was a big aspect of that. But so the focus was really on finding the balance between all three of those things to get a successful outcome for everyone.
Cool. So the artifact that you're looking at here is one of the main outputs that we produced during the research piece. So this is a journey map detailing the actual processes that the nurses and carers go through and the time taken across each activity, the systems that they interacted with, and their pain points and emotions along the way. So the research in total spanned 2 weeks, and as a team we shadowed 7 registered nurses across 5 different sites, so 2 in Christchurch, 1 in Wellington and 2 in Auckland. And put simply, what we found was not what we expected. So the amount of administration tasks registered nurses had to deal with was much higher than we initially predicted. This highlighted the shift in focus from the residents' medical care and raised concerns around potential risks that could occur. The software was not configured in a way that made the nurses' tasks easy. So workarounds had been implemented to make these systems fit for purpose. The workarounds not only created several areas of double handling and multitasking, but on average doubled the time it took to get important data into the system, also putting resident care at risk. There was a lack of fit for purpose equipment. So when iPads were introduced, the staff in the office color coded them by the type of software that the iPad was running, blue for one and red for the other. What they didn't then do was communicate this to the staff on the ground that were using the iPads, which resulted in them thinking that they were color-coded based on role, blue for carers and red for nurses. Remember the assumption that we made around nurses juggling multiple devices? What we found was that though the iPads were introduced to allow nurses to enter their notes in real time, it turned out that they weren't actually carrying the iPads with them when they were doing their activities. So they wrote everything down on scrap pieces of paper or on the back of dressing wrappers, and then transferred all of their notes into the system using a desktop computer at the end of the day. So why? Because when they carried out their tasks, they had nowhere to put the iPad. So their uniforms didn't have pockets big enough, or the iPads weren't small enough to fit in them. They also found that the desktop with the dual screens was much easier to use. So as an outcome, our client now had an end-to-end view, so that in future they can make better informed decisions around the implementation of hardware, software, and processes. So though the goal of the research was to get to a point where we could make an informed decision on the most appropriate innovation to implement, what we found that the actual journey was different from what they had initially assumed, and therefore there were several changes to be made to get them to a point where they could then enhance that journey using a digital innovation such as voice assistants. So the biggest thing that came out of this project was actually the importance of running the project itself. Had our client gone and implemented yet another technology for the nurses to use without the knowledge that they have now, they ran the risk of not solving the actual problems, introducing further pain points, and spending a lot of money doing it.
So what next? What next for the work and what next for Jade? Well, in an ideal world, we would now partner with our customer, recapture the journey with all of the process and admin steps fixed. We found quite a few steps where, because what they assumed in head office was the way that it was working differed to the reality. That whole model and the introduction to new pieces of new steps in that journey was quite flawed. So in an ideal world, we would then work with them to design what that actual journey should look like, and then be in a position to introduce an innovative solution. Realistically, we will be working with them around putting together their business case for their funding to do that next stage of work, because that's the reality of the environment that we work in, and our role to support our customers in making the right decisions. And we will then, hopefully when that piece of work lands, be juggling our own resourcing and budgeting to make that happen and keep the team happy. And that is us from Jade.
Hey, thank you guys for sharing. And it's yeah, quite fascinating to hear what sort of goes on behind the scenes, especially with these digital products. Just to throw out there to everyone listening in, if you do have questions, please do remember we've got the Q&A box. Now's a chance to throw those in there, and we can address them. But just a bit of a question that I had, and kind of say what you can. But just, I'm wondering if you can share a little bit more about that journey working with the client. As you say, like you were helping them to validate and to understand, I guess, the issue of on the ground, generally working with people who are based in a head office and disconnected from maybe the realities of what's happening on the ground. And I guess there's a perception that what you bring to them may be seen as a critique of their business or be taken in a negative way. Did you find that with this client, or like how do you sort of navigate that client relationship where you are sort of maybe calling into question some of their practices?
It's always a very delicate situation, I think. We were really lucky in that the client that we were working with were open to hearing anything we found, the good, the bad, the otherwise. And they looked at what we told them as potential opportunities rather than problems. So it was the opportunity to solve the process or the software or the hardware issues they had in order to function more efficient and effectively.
Yeah, great. Well, that's always helpful. Scarlett, did you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I think it's pretty common occurrence for us that people come to us with a solution in mind, and a lot of what we do is about trying to understand what the problem is they're trying to solve, and yeah, to navigate that friction point around they've asked for something and we're going to tell them it's the wrong thing. I think I mean, it really depends on the client, but we try to take yeah, absolutely we can. There's some validation that we need to do, and I think it's about letting them uncover the assumptions for themselves, and we're kind of holding up that mirror for them, so it doesn't become about us trying to persuade them. But it very much does depend on the client, and we were really lucky with this client that that's exactly how it played out. They identified the gap between what they wanted and what their problems were for themselves.
Yeah, and something which I think is probably, I mean, is relevant regardless of what sort of design people are into, but then how do you navigate, I think, from a business side? Obviously, we've got a client coming to you with a bit of a brief or an idea of what you want, and as you go through that discovery process, finding out the solution is maybe quite different. How do you then navigate to the kind of the scoping of the work and the, I guess, the budget and that kind of stuff? I know it's a broad question, but can you maybe speak to that a little bit?
I think it really, I don't think we have not yet found a one size fits all successful path for that. I think, again, it depends on the client, it depends on the understanding at the beginning, and it depends on how much information you have to go on. Sometimes if we are really sure that we don't have enough information to make a call about kind of the scope of delivering a solution, we might propose an upfront discovery phase to make sure that we're all aligned, and that works for the customer often as well, because they're not having to commit a huge budget up front with a whole lot of uncertainty, and we can do that discovery piece as a shared piece and then make a much more detailed and accurate plan after that. So that's something that we've had some success with. But, like I said, I don't think, well, if anyone else who's listening has found that one size fits all successful way of navigating that, please share.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge that happens like right across the industry for sure. And then just one other thing, I heard you say, Scarlett, was around obviously managing your team, and particularly we know with COVID, it's been a challenging time over the last year or so. I mean, you said one of your concerns was sort of managing, not burning your people out and making sure the team stayed healthy. Could you maybe just share a little bit of what you implemented to help with that and to make sure your team did stay healthy and strong and wasn't overworking?
Well, I think Lisa's face speaks volumes that in this piece of work, that was probably not a great example of success there either. Yeah, it was very much at the beginning of my time in the role, and uncovering what the kind of the lay of the land and current state was. I guess since then, what we've done is we've really put in a lot of time investing in being a team and making sure that we have the right level of connection as a team, and defining how we want to work as a team. And it's not perfect, but I guess by having a really clear relationship between what our goals are as a team, what our individual goals are, and how we operate, it means that even if, in times of a lot of client work pressure, we get to the goal. Lisa may have a different view about whether we get to, but the goal is that we look at, well, how can we use this as an opportunity to actually achieve some of our personal goals or some of our team goals, so we can feel like we're actually moving forward and we're not just stuck in client world. And then when we do have some downtime, it's about focusing on those individual and team goals and making sure that we don't have that downtime and then have to decide, okay, what am I going to do? So we keep that continuity as well. And we make sure we bookend the week with kick off as a team and then a Friday wrap, and try and balance that between being really process and action heavy versus fun, organized fun. I don't know if Lisa has anything to add about how it actually feels to be receiving that organized fun.
I think the things that we've implemented as a team are really important, because we aren't in one central location. So a while ago, we sort of suffered from the disconnect between New Zealand and Australia, and COVID was actually one of the things that made that break down. So when we went into lockdown, we started a daily, just a coffee chat. So it wasn't surrounding any projects that we're working on or anything. It was just, we jump on for 15 minutes and we have a coffee and a chat with the people that we're working with. And that just merged that gap between New Zealand and Australia, because we are one team. And that was really great. We're also really lucky that we all in our team have different backgrounds. So we sort of bounce off each other, and where I might want to grow, somebody in my team will have a bit more experience in. And so we can, in some ways, peer up on particular projects to learn off of each other, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, it sounds like you have found a good balance there with your team, which is awesome. Hey, thanks guys for sharing, and just to everyone listening in, we will have a section at the end for some more questions as well, open questions. So do feel free to pop anything into that question box if it comes up or you think of it as we continue along. And so on that note, we're now going to head over to our second team who will be sharing with us. So we're welcoming Tyler Burbage and Graeme Blake from Blutui. Hi guys, how are you going?
Great, thanks. Daz, how are you?
Great, thanks for joining us. Well, without further ado, I'll let you guys jump in and introduce yourselves and the project that you're talking about today.
Perfect, thank you. Kia ora, hello, I'm Graeme Blake. I'm founder and very non-technical director of Blutui, and I'm here with Tyler Burbage, one of our amazingly talented young developers, who's going to talk to us all about the inner workings of the Blutui web development platform. But before we get to that, Lou and Daz from Design Assembly have kindly invited us to talk about an agency client project. Quick bit of background, in my spare time, I'm also a director at Pan, the Love Agency. We're a Hamilton-based creative brand, campaign and web development company. So our case study today is about a client, Divoli.com. So Divoli is an independent wholesale fibre provider. They launched Stuff Fibre and now power brands like Contact Energy and more recently charity broadband provider Yellow Halo. When Divoli originally rebranded, the brief was that they wanted to be positioned as left field thinkers, quirky, accessible, fun, and most of all, different from their traditional telco competitors. The answer back then was to deliver a steampunk theme around their newly minted Divoli brand. And it worked, differentiating them almost immediately from all their stuffy, straight corporate competitors. A couple of years on, and Divoli have won a lot of business with their challenger brand strategy. However, 2 years is a long time in tech, and the steampunk aesthetic was felt to have run its course. From our studio production point of view, constantly creating steampunk-inspired assets was pretty difficult and time-consuming. We needed a creative strategy that enabled the brand to constantly evolve through time, but in a timeless way. And one that positioned the brand in a completely unconventional time, space, kind of technology point in existence. And importantly, it had to be fun. We put this challenge to the creative team, who developed a surrealist concept that transcends time and space and delivers a wonderfully simple and technically elegant way of constantly evolving the brand by simply creating new, easily animatable illustrations to support whatever the client has going on at the time. The website is Divoli's most trafficked asset and shows off how engaging this concept can be, kind of bordering on mesmerizing in parts. We'll be working to constantly change up the Divoli brand to work for their staff and their board. Like I said, whatever they've got going on in their business life, as well as to work with their incredibly focused market of big brands wanting to do cool things with the web and with technology.
This is also a fun example of how a Blutui web development platform lets agencies like Pan build whatever the brief requires with the help of visionary creatives and technically capable front-end web developers. Divoli, like every Blutui site, uses basic CSS and HTML and lets you get creative fast.
Right. So Blutui is that's the case study. Blutui is the web development platform for creative agencies, front-end web developers, and multi-client marketers. I come from a creative agency background, building brands, campaigns, and websites either in-house or by outsourcing, working with multiple clients at any one time with their unique business needs and site requirements. And over my time, I've got a bit of age to me, but we've built hundreds of sites. Blutui came about because of three main things. Constrained creativity. Our front-end web developers were forever frustrated by the constraints of the available platforms, most heavily templated drag and drop systems, offering a great initial experience, but we found them to be extremely limiting when the client requirements began to grow. When you're delivering hundreds of sites, you're looking for ways to make clients stand out, which is not easy when the fundamentals of most site building technologies is templated, drag and drop, cookie cutter site construction. We wanted a carefully considered and curated platform for creativity.
Also performance. Technologies that rely heavily on templates and plugins are inherently a lot slower. These sites ship a lot of non-essential code, whereas Blutui, being a more static site builder, only ships the code you wrote for that specific project. So it makes Blutui sites extremely performant.
Yeah, and the third main thing, I guess, is agency admin. This is for management. I mean, who likes doing admin? We were running an agency where over time, sites were built in a bunch of different technologies. Some were kind of built in-house, others were outsourced. The developers moved around a lot, and over time, the agency became hamstrung by high levels of tech fragmentation. There was no one platform that could handle the creative requirements and manage all of our projects at once. Trying to keep on top of all these projects was nightmarish, and efficiencies were really costing the business.
Now with Blutui, agencies have complete creative freedom to build anything they can think of. With customizable permissions, Blutui lets you manage the creative team, client, and content management teams. Blutui is essentially a web studio in a box with a white label option that allows you to project your brand to your staff, contractors, and clients throughout the Blutui experience. You can establish agency brand with a team of front-end web developers, or you could easily start your own brand and build your web business in Blutui.
So for anyone wanting to see inside Blutui, Tyler's going to run you through the main features. So Blutui admin dashboard, which shows you just how easy it is to manage multiple client projects and contributors. The collections feature makes database management for heavily data-driven sites really easy. And Canopy Editor, which gives agencies absolute control over the aesthetic of sites without having to worry about clients or content managers breaking stuff. And later on, I can answer any questions on how Blutui can work for any creative agency, whether you have a studio full of talented creatives and front-end web developers, or if you prefer to contract your talent in. Blutui gives you absolute control over how to run your projects and your business. So now I'll hand you over to Tyler, and if there's any questions, we're here after the demo.
Start the video again. Okay, so this is the Blutui site dashboard. So this is the agency management screen. So you can see these are all the sites that we have running on Blutui. Published, still in development, or archived for later. This is the domain management screen. So these are all the many domains you can link into Blutui, and then you can point them to your many different projects. And up here are your agency settings. This lets you do a bunch of stuff. So it lets you start with white labeling your design or web development agency, so the experience that everyone get is uniquely yours. And the branding options, colors, logos. There's also a lot of team management features. This is permissions and roles. So it allows you to have contractors overseas with access of one part of the system, and then people in your own staff with bigger access. All these roles and permissions are completely customizable by you. So you can set it however you like. And also a comprehensive billing feature, which is based on a per site fee. Then, for example, we're going to go into a different site today that we just saw before. This is a Kershaw site. So this is the Blutui site dashboard. So people with access to a specific site see this page. So this could be content people or the client. This is the asset management. So these are lots of assets you load into our CMS that allows you to easily reuse in the web page template. Blutui has a built-in blogs page for easy blog management. Pages, so this lets you access a lot of SEO. So you can do meta descriptions, titles, choose when to publish pages, and edit URLs all within the Blutui site dashboard. We have a comprehensive form manager for both multiple forms, and you can easily edit them on the template. So you can edit the fields, validation rules. You can set who is receiving the forms, carbon copies, reply to, everything you need when creating which makes it really easy for front-end web developers. So that's the forms. Here's where Blutui starts getting really powerful. So this is what we call collections. Collections is essentially a database, but all the heavy lifting's done already for you. So you can easily edit a collection. So this is our banner collection. We have another collection for success stories for this example. You can easily edit the entries, essentially adding things to your site's database, or you can create new collections. And these are the many types of field attributes you have: date, time, color, images, integers, anything you really need for data-driven websites. This is the menu editor. So this lets you control a hamburger menu or a main menu on different sites. And then you have other settings. So this is maybe redirection, if you want different pages or different URLs to redirect. User accounts, once again, this lets you have many users for the website, different levels of permission. So people who can just edit the content on the page, or people who can actually edit all the assets. So if we were to log into Kershaw, this is the website here. This is the Blutui CMS. We call this Canopy, and it's a great content editor that prevents people from being able to break your website, which is one of the key things we found here. So you can easily just click on an element, edit it, and you can just publish any changes. It's really just that simple. And you can make changes on your entire website using Canopy. So this is great for people like content people or the client who would want to essentially make changes often, but not have to dig into the back-end code, even though it is just simple HTML. Here you see that form being reproduced from earlier. So it's a great example of how simple it is to make forms in Blutui that look really effective. And they all include reCAPTCHA as well, which is another great feature. The other cool features about Blutui Canopy, and it just shows you how easy it is to build a responsive web page. This is that menu from earlier. You can even adjust devices and rotate the devices in Canopy. Yeah, so this is Blutui Canopy.
Right.
And that's Blutui.
Great, thanks, team. That's a good, real deep dive into the back end. Thank you for that. Again, out to the audience, if you've got any questions that you want to pop in, remember the Q&A box is there. A couple from me. The first thing I'm sort of curious about is going back to the work you're doing with Devoli. This steampunk idea, you mentioned that you're in a situation where you're developing a lot of content. Can you tell us a little bit about the creative process that A, sort of went into coming up with that idea in the first place, and then also B, I guess that idea generation? Is there a process or something you can tell us about how that all came about?
Yeah, I guess the main, the core of the brief was that they wanted to be differentiated, which I know is kind of the core of everyone's brief. But they were as a business, as a management group, and as a business, they actually let us get on and didn't curtail our process. And so we took them kind of out to the limits of where we were at the time, and we were trying to figure out, okay, well, or our design team at least was saying, what's an aesthetic that's kind of timeless? It's an alternate It's an alternate universe sort of thing. It's what if it was everything was steam powered instead of electricity, like just that whole different way of thinking, which is inherent within the Tivoli business. Like, I mean, they really drive that culturally within their business. They really put a lot of effort internally to solve mundane problems all the time, kind of thing, right? So it was to try and project that out. And so this is like two and a half years ago, and the design team landed on steampunk as a first place to kind of land. What we found was really difficult was the expense of kind of bespoke custom pieces of art to, as assets. I mean, it is just incredibly expensive to have engineers building steampunk bits and pieces kind of thing. So, and I'm semi ashamed to say it out loud, but we relied a little bit on stock imagery. Everyone hates stock, but in this case we had to rely a little bit on it, and to a large degree we do with the new kind of surrealist approach. But it's nowhere, well, it's quite obvious, but it's not as kind of focused as trying to reinvent steampunk every kind of 3 to 6 months. It's something we absolutely learned from.
Yeah. And that surrealist aesthetic it's very effective, isn't it? It sort of almost...
Well, it's so flexible, Daz.
Yeah.
It's really flexible. I mean, it's literally if they want to be talking about, if they wanted to be talking about America's Cup and sailing at some stage, you literally put in a yacht and sail it through the stratosphere. It's whatever you want it to be. It's so flexible, and it's a lot of fun for the studio as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess it sounds like Tivoli as a client was sort of quite easy to work with in terms of they were kind of happy to go out to that extreme and trust you with that concept.
Entirely, yeah.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit maybe about how you work with those clients that are maybe not so receptive to some of the creative ideas?
You're just coaching them, really. We tend to show them what mundane would look like. Give them two options. One's kind of really mundane and one's out the gate cool. So that's kind of the way we tend to manage stuff through, which means that the studio suffers a little bit. They're sitting there going, oh God, we've got to do a kind of a marginally kind of cool piece of work, or someone gets to work on the really good stuff. But if it's what gets the client there in the end, and it's what we feel deeply, that it's the right thing to do, then it's worth the extra effort.
Yeah, for sure. And we have had a question come in just asking about the fact, that there are a lot of different web builders and platforms out there. So with Blutui, how are you sort of finding a sort of adoption, and maybe like which sort of like vertical are those customers from, or where? Can you tell us maybe about who you're finding is adopting the platform?
So we're just at the start of our journey, I guess, in terms of getting it out into the market. And while we've got around about 600 or 700 front-end web developer users, we're just out now getting out there and amongst agencies and talking to them about adopting Blutui. That really is our core, I guess our core market is literally front-end web developers who will have worked in a creative space, and agencies, creative agencies, marketing agencies, PR companies, or creative agencies, and maybe web development companies. I mean, they feel like, to us, they feel like they're probably more entrenched. But I guess Blutui, one of the big positives about Blutui is that it enables a creative agency to really take control of their portfolio of clients, with a multi-project app or a multi-project platform, letting them basically aggregate all their clients. They're all in one spot. You can manage them. You know who built it. You know when it was last worked on and by who and all of that sort of thing. Because literally we got to the stage where we had hundreds of websites and a plethora of different technologies that were all in different ages and stages of, becoming almost legacy kind of thing. Some of the technology that underpins some web apps or web platforms is like 20, 25 years old, and it hasn't necessarily moved a huge lot, whereas we've built Blutui to be entirely modular, entirely updatable. It can move to whatever the latest languages, all that sort of thing. And I should probably revert to Tyler here because I'm the non-technical director.
Blutui is pretty simple, and basically there's a lot of technologies out there, so it more comes down to what does Blutui do differently to everyone else. Two things Blutui is great for that other people don't do as well. The first one is it really lets you put your own brand on Blutui and the CMS. So I could be a front-end developer, and then I can really make Blutui, the CMS, feel like my brand. So when a client then goes to edit something on their website, it feels like they're using my product and they're dealing with me personally. But another great thing is it lets a front-end developer, someone with great HTML, CSS, and even JavaScript knowledge, if they want to go there, make anything they want. It's not limited like a lot of site builders are, thinking more basic WordPress or even Squarespace. You can really make anything you want. So we showed two different sites. One was completely surreal, and the other one was a lot more simple and data-driven. Blutui lets you do anything you want with HTML and CSS and then wire it into a CMS almost effortlessly that a client can then edit themselves or change what they like without breaking the website.
So you can be offering your client, a really unique web experience without having to build any of the back end. And you're not constrained by the limitations of basically template-driven sites. We built it for ourselves, having experienced, everything we just sort of talked through. There's the business side, there's the aesthetic of a website and the user experience and the performance of a website, but there's also the background, the studio workflows, the business of doing web that Blutui sort of caters to. It doesn't sort of cater to it, caters to it extremely well.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, I'll just remind everyone, and I'll call sort of Lisa and Scarlett back in at this point as well. If there are any last questions that you do want to pop into that box, do go ahead and do that now. But just to give people sort of 30 seconds to jump in there if they would like to. Following up, Graeme, if people want to know more, what's the best way to get in touch with you for that?
If they're a front-end dev, they should probably jump into the app and talk to Tyler through Slack. Other than that, just literally through the website, it's pretty simple. It's graham@blutui.com. And yeah, just ask away. Jump in and have a play with it.
Yeah, if you really want to get under the hood and digging into Blutui, just check out our website. And there's also a great bunch of developer documentation. So if you really want to see how it all works, feel free to jump in there. There's also a chat. You can just chat to us if you like. So,
yeah, perfect. All right. Well, I think that is probably the end for us here. We haven't got any last questions pop up. So a big thank you to everyone for joining us again today. And thank you to Scarlett and Lisa from Jade and to Graeme and Tyler from Blutui for sharing with us today. And we really appreciate your insights. And just a reminder, we will be launching signups for Under the Hood for next month. We'll be coming out really soon, so keep an eye out for that. And next month, our focus is going to be around paper, which is going to be a very different conversation today, obviously, going from a digital world to paper world. So do come in and join in on that. And also, lastly, just do check out our website. We've been updating. There's a few more workshops that have gone live recently for you to check out if you're interested in the digital accessibility field. We have a new workshop that's just gone up happening in both Auckland and Christchurch, which is a digital accessibility for designers workshop with Chandra from Access Advisors. So that will be a really good chance if you're keen to understand more around digital accessibility and building digital projects for people that have accessibility needs. But other than that, again, thank you again to Blutui, to Portfolio, to My Chili Bin and Streamtime, who help us make these events happen. And we will see you all at next month's Under the Hood. Thanks for joining us. Have a good day.